The doorbell rings. You freeze. You weren't expecting anyone. Through the window, you see a familiar car in the driveway. A relative. A friend. Someone who thought it would be nice to just stop by. Your heart doesn't lift. It sinks. And in that split second before you open the door, or decide not to, you feel something you're not supposed to feel. Dread. Not because you hate them, but because your home isn't just a house. It's your sanctuary. And unannounced visitors don't knock on your door, they invade it. There are people who've spent decades learning to guard their peace like a fortress. They don't see their home as a place to entertain. They see it as the one space in the world where they don't have to perform, where they can finally breathe. And when someone shows up without warning, it's not just an inconvenience, it's an assault on their energy, their control, their right to exist without being drained by someone else's need for spontaneity. But here's what most people will never understand. The reason you hate unannounced visitors isn't about being rude, antisocial, or cold. It's about something far deeper, a specific way your mind processes freedom, autonomy, and the sacred boundary between your inner world and the chaos outside. There's a philosopher who understood this deeply, and his words might be the most validating thing you hear today. He said that a person can only be themselves when they're alone. And if you don't love solitude, you won't love freedom. We'll come back to him in a moment, because what he understood about human nature changes everything. Once you understand why this feels like a violation of your very self when it feels so harmless to everyone else, you'll never apologize for guarding your peace again. Let me explain what's actually happening here. What if this isn't a character flaw? What if it's not about being unfriendly, difficult, or emotionally unavailable? What if the way you respond to unannounced visitors, that instant dread, that sinking feeling, that quiet rage that rises in your chest, is actually a sign of something far more complex than the world gives you credit for? Most people assume that if you don't like surprise visits, you must be antisocial, cold, maybe even a little broken. But what if the opposite is true? What if your reaction isn't about hating people at all? It's about protecting your energy from people who take more than they give. Your peace. Your right to exist in your own space without having to shift into performance mode the moment someone crosses your threshold. There are people whose hearts don't beat faster in crowds. They beat steadier in silence. And when that silence is interrupted, especially without warning, without consent, without the mental preparation they need to engage, it doesn't feel like connection. It feels like invasion, not because they're fragile, but because their inner world is rich, complex, and requires a specific kind of environment to thrive, and unannounced visitors shatter that environment in an instant. It wasn't always this way. I remember someone telling me once that I needed to be more spontaneous, more open, that I should enjoy surprise visits because they meant people cared about me. And for years, I believed that. I thought there was something wrong with me because I didn't feel joy when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. I felt panic. I felt resentment. I felt trapped. I spent years thinking I was broken. I'd watch people around me light up when friends dropped by unannounced. They'd laugh, hug, invite them in without hesitation. And I'd wonder, why don't I feel that? Why does my first instinct feel like fight or flight? Why does my home, my sanctuary, suddenly feel like a stage I didn't audition for? But then I realized something. My need for control over my own space wasn't a flaw, it was a design. It wasn't about hating people, it was about loving peace more than I feared judgment. It was about recognizing that my energy is finite, and I have the right to decide how and when I spend it. And unannounced visitors, no matter how well-meaning, were asking me to spend it without my consent. There's a word for this. Sovereignty, emotional sovereignty. The right to govern your own inner world, your own energy, your own space. And for people who've spent decades trying to be accommodating, trying to be the fun one, trying to be the person who says yes to everything, reclaiming that sovereignty feels like rebellion. But it's not rebellion, it's survival, it's self-preservation. It's the quiet act of saying, my peace matters more than your spontaneity. And here's what I learned. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's freedom. It's the space where you don't have to explain yourself, defend yourself, or perform yourself. It's where you can finally breathe. And when someone shows up unannounced, they're not just interrupting your day, they're interrupting your oxygen. After decades of trying to enjoy crowded rooms, after years of forcing yourself to be available, after a lifetime of believing that saying no made you selfish, you've earned the right to guard your peace. You've earned the right to say, my home is not a public space, my time is not a public resource, and my energy is not something you get to claim without asking. And that's not coldness, that's clarity, that's wisdom. That's the kind of emotional intelligence that only comes from years of learning what drains you and what sustains you. And unannounced visitors, they drain, they deplete, they demand, and you finally learned that you don't owe anyone access to your sanctuary just because they decided to show up. Still, here's a curiosity. Why do some people feel this so intensely while others don't? Why does an unannounced visitor feel like a minor inconvenience to some and a full-scale emergency to others? What's the psychology behind this? What's happening in the mind of someone who hates unannounced visitors? Here's the thing most people don't understand. For some, socializing isn't energizing. It's exhausting. It's a chore. It's a performance that requires rehearsal, preparation, and a full tank of emotional fuel. And when someone shows up unannounced, they're not just asking for your time. They're asking you to perform without notice, to shift from your authentic self, the one who exists in solitude, in comfort, in peace, to the version of you that the world expects, the one who smiles, the one who makes small talk, the one who pretends that this interruption is welcome. But here's what's really happening beneath the surface. When you hate unannounced visitors, it's not just about the interruption. It's about three deeper psychological realities that most people never see. The first is about energy architecture. Some people recharge through interaction. Others recharge through solitude. And for those in the latter category, their home isn't just a place to rest. It's the only place where they can exist without expending energy. Every social interaction, no matter how brief, requires them to activate a different version of themselves. A version that's polite, engaged, present. And when someone shows up unannounced, there's no time to gather that energy, no time to prepare. And so the interaction doesn't feel like connection. It feels like being asked to run a marathon without warming up. The second is about control and safety. For people who guard their homes like fortresses, their space isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's the one environment where they don't have to be on, where they can exist in their most authentic, unfiltered state, where they can wear what they want, do what they want, and be who they are without judgment. But when someone shows up unannounced, that sanctuary is breached, the fortress is invaded, and suddenly they're forced to shift from sanctuary mode to performance mode. And that shift feels like a violation, not because they hate the person, but because they hate the loss of control. The third is about trust and boundaries. Here's a secret people rarely say out loud. For some, unannounced visitors feel emotionally unsafe because when someone shows up without warning, it sends a message. Your boundaries don't matter. Your need for preparation doesn't matter. Your right to control your own space doesn't matter. And for people who've spent years learning to set boundaries, learning to protect their peace, learning to say no, that message feels like a betrayal. It's not that they don't trust the person at the door, it's that they don't trust the world to respect their need for solitude, for preparation, for control. And here's the paradox. Sometimes the reason people love being alone is because the world once disappointed them. Maybe they were let down by friends who didn't respect their boundaries. Maybe they were drained by relationships that took more than they gave. Maybe they learned that people are unpredictable, demanding, and exhausting. And so, they retreated. Not because they hate people, but because they love peace more. And that's not weakness, that's emotional wisdom. That's the kind of clarity that only comes from years of learning what sustains you and what depletes you. And if protecting your peace means saying no to unannounced visitors, then that's not coldness, that's strength. If you are someone who finds more peace in solitude than in crowds, you're not alone. This journey of choosing peace over performance is happening quietly, all over the world, right now. After years of trying to fit in, millions of people like you are finally choosing themselves. Before we go deeper into what this means for your life, take a moment to join this quiet corner of the internet, a space for people who've spent decades feeling different and are finally finding their peace. And if this resonates with you, share in the comments what part of this journey touched you most deeply. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. You're not alone in feeling this way. Let's continue, because what comes next might be the very thing you've been carrying in silence for years. Let me shift for a moment and speak directly to you. Not about you, to you. What if nothing is wrong with you? What if the way you respond to unannounced visitors, that instant dread, that sinking feeling, that quiet resentment, isn't a flaw? What if it's a sign of something far more valuable than the world gives you credit for? I spent years thinking I was broken. I'd watch people around me laugh when friends dropped by unannounced. They'd hug, invite them in, make coffee, and seem genuinely delighted by the surprise. And I'd wonder, why don't I feel that? Why does my first instinct feel like panic? Why does my home, my sanctuary, suddenly feel like a stage I didn't audition for? But then I realized something. My need for control over my own space wasn't a flaw. It was a design. It wasn't about hating people. It was about loving peace more than I feared judgment. It was about recognizing that my energy is finite, and I have the right to decide how and when I spend it. And here's what I learned. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's freedom. It's the space where you don't have to explain yourself, defend yourself, or perform yourself. It's where you can finally breathe. And when someone shows up unannounced, they're not just interrupting your day, they're interrupting your oxygen. At 50, 60, 70, you've earned the right to choose peace. You've earned the right to say, my home is not a public space. My time is not a public resource. And my energy is not something you get to claim without asking. And that's not coldness. That's clarity. That's wisdom. That's the kind of emotional intelligence that only comes from years of learning what drains you and what sustains you. And now it's time to talk directly to you, because what comes next might be the most validating thing you'll hear today. Maybe you are one of these people. Maybe you've spent decades trying to be the person who says yes, the person who accommodates, the person who never complains when someone shows up unannounced because you don't want to seem rude, cold, or difficult. But here's the truth. It doesn't mean you never get lonely. It doesn't mean you don't crave connection. It just means that connection, for you, doesn't look like spontaneity. It looks like intention. It looks like respect. It looks like someone asking first, honoring your boundary, and giving you the space to prepare. And there's a difference between solitude and loneliness. Solitude is chosen. Loneliness is not. Solitude is the space where you recharge, where you think, where you exist without performance. Loneliness is the ache of feeling unseen, unheard, disconnected. And you can be surrounded by people and feel lonely. Or you can be alone and feel completely at peace. The same is true for rest and laziness. Rest is intentional. It's the act of protecting your energy, honoring your limits, and choosing peace over performance. Laziness is avoidance. It's the refusal to engage with life. And what you're doing, guarding your peace, protecting your sanctuary, saying no to unannounced visitors, isn't laziness. It's rest, it's wisdom, it's survival. And here's the reframe. Solitude gives you strength. It gives you clarity. It gives you the space to think, to create, to exist without the noise of the world drowning out your own voice. And when you guard that solitude, when you say no to unannounced visitors, when you protect your sanctuary, when you choose peace over spontaneity, you're not running away from life, you're running toward it. The life that doesn't exhaust you, the life that doesn't drain you, the life that feels like yours. While others fear missing out, you've discovered the joy of opting out, the joy of staying home, the joy of your own company, the joy of silence, stillness, and the gentle rhythm of a life that doesn't require you to perform. And that's not a loss, that's a win. But there is something important still waiting to be said. Something about why this feels so right to you when it feels so wrong to everyone else. And once you understand it, everything about your life starts to make sense. And here's where the philosopher comes back. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this deeply. He believed that a person can only be themselves when they're alone. That solitude isn't a lack of connection, it's the presence of freedom. And if you don't love solitude, you won't love freedom. Because freedom is the ability to exist without performance, without judgment, without the constant demand to be something other than what you are. Schopenhauer also believed that the need for social interaction is inversely proportional to the richness of one's inner world. In other words, the more complex, sensitive, and profound your inner life, the less you need external validation or constant company. It's not that you're incapable of connection, it's that your connection with yourself is so deep, so complete, that you don't need the world to fill the silence. And unannounced visitors, they steal that freedom, they demand performance, they interrupt your oxygen, and if you hate them for it, you're not broken. You're just someone who's learned that peace is more valuable than spontaneity. And that's not a flaw, that's wisdom. Picture this. You're standing at your window, watching life continue outside. Cars pass, people walk by, the world moves at its own pace, and you're inside, safe, quiet, at peace. Society glorifies busyness as if stillness is failure. It glorifies spontaneity as if preparation is rigidity. It glorifies constant connection as if solitude is loneliness. But what if the opposite is true? What if stillness is part of clarity? What if preparation is part of respect? What if solitude is part of freedom? Rest is part of growth. Silence is part of depth, and solitude is part of self-companionship. The ability to be alone without feeling lonely. The ability to enjoy your own company without needing validation from the world. The ability to exist in peace without apologizing for it. And here's the thing. Your cat curled beside you understands more than most people ever will. Your dog doesn't judge your silence. Your home doesn't demand performance. And that's not a loss, that's a gift. While others fear missing out, you've discovered the joy of opting out, the joy of staying home, the joy of your own company, the joy of silence, stillness, and the gentle rhythm of a life that doesn't require you to perform. And that's not loneliness, that's peace. That's freedom. That's the life you've been building all along. You are not strange for hating unannounced visitors. You are not cold for guarding your peace. You are not broken for choosing solitude over spontaneity. You are not antisocial. You are not rude. You are not difficult. You are someone who's learned that your energy is finite, your peace is precious, and your home is your sanctuary, and you have the right to protect it. You are building a life that doesn't exhaust you, a life that doesn't drain you, a life that feels like yours. And one day, not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, you will open your door to someone, not because you're forced to, but because you choose to, because they asked first, because they respected your boundary, because they honored your need for preparation. And when that day comes, it won't feel like invasion. It will feel like connection, real connection, the kind that doesn't drain you, the kind that doesn't demand performance, the kind that respects your peace. You've earned this peace after decades of trying to be the person who says yes, after years of forcing yourself to be available, after a lifetime of believing that saying no made you selfish. You've earned the right to guard your sanctuary. You've earned the right to say, My home is mine, my time is mine, and my energy is mine. And that's not coldness, that's clarity, that's freedom. That's the life you've been building all along. If this resonates with you, if you want to go even deeper into understanding why solitude feels like oxygen and connection feels like performance, there's more waiting for you here. Another conversation, another layer, just for you. This is Alone Together, a quiet corner of the internet for people who choose solitude over half-hearted connections. If you're here, you're not broken. You're just built differently. And you're not alone in being alone.